A hospital receptionist noticed an 8-year-old girl hiding under tables every evening. When she offered her food and asked about her parents, the child's whispered reply about her new uncle made her call 911. The last rays of sunlight retreated behind Boston's skyline, surrendering to the harsh February wind that swept through the city's streets. Inside Mercy General Hospital, the pediatric wing hummed with the familiar evening routine. Nurses changing shifts, visitors leaving for the night, and Olivia Bennett settling into the quiet hours of her reception desk. Olivia's fingers hovered over her keyboard, her eyes drifting toward the waiting area for the third time in 10 minutes. The girl was back again. Small and shadow-like, she slipped through the automatic doors at precisely 6:08 p.m., just as she had every evening for the past 2 weeks. No accompanying adult, no apparent reason to be there. Just a child with a worn backpack and vigilant eyes that scanned the room before she disappeared beneath the table in the far corner, the one partially hidden by a large potted plant. "Maureen, I'm stepping away for a minute," Olivia called to the night nurse, who nodded without looking up from her charts. At 34, Olivia carried herself with the controlled composure of someone who had seen too much. Her dark hair was swept into a practical bun, and her hospital ID badge hung from a lanyard decorated with faded sunflowers, a reminder of a more optimistic time. 3 years at Mercy General hadn't erased the habits formed during her 8 years as a social worker. She recognized the signs most people overlooked: the calculated movements of a child trying to be invisible, the layered clothing that suggested inadequate heating at home, the careful way the girl rationed a single granola bar over hours. Olivia approached casually, stopping at the water cooler several feet from the table. From the corner of her eye, she could see tiny sneakers, once white, now gray with dirt and fraying at the seams, poking out from beneath the tablecloth. "Getting cold out there," she remarked to no one in particular, filling a paper cup. "They're saying we might get another 8 inches of snow tonight." No response came from beneath the table, but the sneakers shifted slightly. "I'm about to heat up some soup in the break room. Made too much this morning." Olivia kept her voice neutral, conversational. Shame to throw it away. She walked away without waiting for an answer, heading to the staff kitchen where she indeed had a container of homemade chicken soup. As she warmed it, she glanced at the clock. By now, she knew the girl's pattern. She would remain hidden until around 10 p.m., when the night shift was fully established and attention was elsewhere. Then she would slip out as quietly as she had arrived. Olivia arranged a tray with the soup, crackers, and an apple from her own lunch bag. Instead of returning directly to the waiting area, she placed the tray on the edge of the reception desk and resumed her work. 20 minutes passed before she casually picked up the tray and walked to the potted plant. "Getting cold," she said again, placing the tray on the floor near the table but not looking beneath it. "Someone should eat this before it does." She retreated to her desk, pretending to focus on her computer. In the reflection of her screen, she watched as a small hand emerged cautiously from beneath the tablecloth, fingers curling around the edge of the tray before pulling it out of sight. Olivia smiled to herself. A small victory in what she suspected was a much larger battle. The pattern continued for another week. Olivia leaving food, the girl accepting it silently. On the 8th day, Olivia added a note. "I'm Olivia. What's your name?" The next day, she found a folded paper airplane on her desk, containing a single word in careful printing: Maya. Tonight marked the 3rd week, and Olivia had decided it was time for a direct approach. The temperature had dropped to near zero, and the forecast predicted the worst snowstorm of the season. The thought of the child leaving the hospital to go God knows where in such weather was unacceptable. "Brought some hot chocolate tonight," Olivia said, kneeling down near the table instead of just leaving the tray. "Mind if I join you?" A long silence followed, long enough that Olivia thought her overture had been rejected. Then the tablecloth shifted, and a face peered out. Solemn brown eyes set in a heart-shaped face, framed by dark curls that hadn't seen a brush in days. "You don't have to come out," Olivia clarified. "I thought maybe I could come in." The girl, Maya, studied her with an intensity that felt too ancient for her young face. Finally, she nodded once, a slight inclination that most would have missed. Olivia carefully set the tray on the floor and lowered herself to her hands and knees, crawling beneath the table. The space was cramped, even with Maya pressed against the wall, her knees drawn to her chest. Up close, Olivia could see that Maya was small even for what she guessed was about 8 years old. Her coat, too large and threadbare at the cuffs, engulfed her thin frame. "Thank you for the soup yesterday," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And the apple." "You're welcome." Olivia kept her tone light, casual, as if finding children hiding under hospital furniture was an everyday occurrence. "I noticed you like apples. Red ones especially." Maya's eyes widened slightly, surprised at being noticed, at having preferences that mattered. "I eat the whole thing," she said, a hint of pride in her voice. "Even the seeds. My mom says apple seeds have poison in them, but not enough to hurt you unless you eat a whole cup of them." "Your mom sounds smart," Olivia offered, noting the present tense. "Is she here at the hospital?" Maya's face clouded, her fingers picking at a loose thread on her coat sleeve. "Third floor, room 317. She's sleeping a lot because of the medicine." "I see." Olivia waited, letting the silence create space for Maya to continue if she wanted. She was driving, and it was raining, and a truck didn't stop. The words came out in a practiced cadence, as if she'd repeated this explanation many times. "The doctor said her brain got bumped really hard and her leg is broken in 3 places." "That sounds scary," Olivia said gently. "Is someone taking care of you while your mom is getting better?" Maya's fingers abandoned the thread and moved to the zipper of her coat, pulling it up and down nervously. "Uncle Gerald. Except he's not really my uncle. He's my mom's friend. They only knew each other for like 3 months before the accident." The alarm bells that had been ringing softly in Olivia's mind grew louder. "Does Uncle Gerald know you're here at the hospital?" Maya shrugged, not meeting Olivia's eyes. "He has business meetings at night. Important ones. I'm not supposed to be there." "Where are you supposed to be?" "Nowhere that makes noise," she replied with the simple logic of a child reciting a rule. "I tried staying in the stairwell of our building, but Mr. Peterson from 4B found me and yelled. The hospital is warm, and nobody notices if you're quiet." Olivia's heart constricted. She glanced at the backpack beside Maya, now understanding its purpose. "Maya, how long have you been coming here at night?" "Since Mom got hurt." 23 days. She pulled a small notebook from her coat pocket, opening it to reveal a page of carefully drawn tally marks. "I keep track." "And where do you go when the hospital closes?" "It doesn't really close," Maya said with the confidence of someone who had done thorough research. "The doors are always open because of emergencies. I leave at night when the lady at the desk starts looking sleepy, and I come back in the morning when the coffee cart man arrives. The rest of the time..." She trailed off, her eyes darting to Olivia's face and then away. "The rest of the time?" Olivia prompted gently. "There's a place behind the dumpsters at McDonald's where the heat comes out. If I put my backpack down like a pillow, it's not so bad." She said this with forced casualness, but her shoulders hunched forward protectively. Olivia struggled to keep her expression neutral despite the rage and dismay swelling within her. "What about school, Maya? Are you still going?" The child's face fell, genuine distress breaking through her careful composure. "Uncle Gerald says we need to keep a low profile right now. He says the school asks too many questions, and we don't need that kind of attention with Mom in the hospital." Every instinct from Olivia's years as a social worker screamed danger. "Low profile?" she echoed. Maya nodded, pulling her knees tighter to her chest. "Because of his business. He has important clients who come to the apartment. He takes pictures for his computer business." "What kind of pictures, Maya?" Olivia asked, her mouth suddenly dry. "Of girls." Maya's voice dropped even lower. "Sometimes they look my age. Uncle Gerald says they're models, but they don't look happy like models in magazines. He has a special camera room that used to be my bedroom. I'm not allowed to go in there anymore." Olivia fought to keep her breathing steady, to not frighten the child with the horror she felt. Maya, has Uncle Gerald ever taken pictures of you? Maya shook her head quickly. No, he says I'm not the right type. But, she hesitated, picking at her sleeve again. He said maybe his friend would want to take pictures of me next week. For practice. He said I could earn money for Mom's hospital bills. The decision crystallized instantly in Olivia's mind. Maya, I need to make a phone call. It's to some people who can help make sure you're safe and warm tonight. Would that be okay? Fear flashed across Maya's face. Are you calling the police? Uncle Gerald says if anyone calls the police, they'll take me away from my mom forever. Not forever, Olivia said firmly. I used to work with children who needed help, and I promise you that the goal is always to keep children with their parents when it's safe. But what about Mom? Who will visit her if I'm gone? Maya's eyes welled with tears, the first real emotional break Olivia had seen. I go every day. I talk to her even though she's sleeping. The nurse said people can hear things when they're sleeping like that. I'll visit her, Olivia promised. Every day until you can again. I'll tell her all about you and how brave you've been. Maya considered this, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Will they tell Uncle Gerald where I am? He gets really mad when things don't go how he wants. No, Olivia said with certainty. They won't tell him. After a long moment, Maya nodded, a small gesture that carried the weight of enormous trust. Can I stay under here while you call? She asked. Of course, and I'll bring you another hot chocolate. This one's probably cold by now. As Olivia carefully backed out from under the table, her mind was already racing through protocols and procedures long filed away but never forgotten. The system was flawed, she knew that better than most, but it was all they had. She thought of the spare bedroom in her apartment, of the bureaucratic nightmare that would prevent her from offering it, of the cold streets outside and what might have happened if Maya hadn't found her way to the hospital. At the reception desk, Olivia picked up the phone and dialed 911. Her voice steady as she reported a case of child endangerment and possible exploitation. As she spoke, she kept her eyes on the table across the room, on the small shadow hidden beneath it, on the child who had survived by becoming invisible. Yes, she told the dispatcher. I'll stay with her until you arrive. After hanging up, Olivia prepared a fresh cup of hot chocolate and grabbed her own coat from the staff closet. Whatever happened next, Maya wouldn't face it alone. The thought stirred something that had been dormant in Olivia for years, a sense of purpose that had been buried beneath layers of burnout and disillusionment. As she made her way back to Maya's hiding place, Olivia realized she was already strategizing. Which of her former colleagues might be on call tonight? Which judge was most likely to be assigned to the emergency placement hearing? What safe houses had openings? Skills she thought she'd abandoned were returning with surprising clarity. She knelt down beside the table. Maya, she said softly, I'm coming back in. The tablecloth lifted slightly in silent invitation. As Olivia crawled back into the cramped space, she found Maya had opened her notebook to a new page. On it was a simple drawing of two stick figures holding hands beside what appeared to be a table with legs. That's us, Maya explained unnecessarily, her fingertip touching the smaller figure. Under our table. It's a good table, Olivia said, her throat tight with emotion. A safe place. Maya nodded solemnly. The safest I found. Outside, snow began to fall, thick flakes illuminated by the hospital's exterior lights. Inside, beneath a simple laminate table, something fragile and essential was taking root. Trust, carefully extended by a child who had learned too young to expect disappointment, and accepted by a woman rediscovering the person she had once been. The one who believed that change was possible, that systems could be navigated, that children like Maya deserved champions who wouldn't give up. Olivia settled in beside Maya, their shoulders touching lightly as they waited for the authorities to arrive. The battle ahead would be difficult, she knew, full of paperwork and court appearances and bureaucratic roadblocks. But looking at the child beside her, at the quiet determination in her young face, Olivia felt a certainty she hadn't experienced in years. Some fights were worth having, no matter the cost. Blue and red lights painted the hospital entrance in alternating flashes as Olivia stood with Maya in the administrative office of the pediatric wing. Snow continued to fall outside, transforming Boston into a silent, white landscape that seemed to absorb all sound except for the occasional crackle of police radios. "You're doing great," Olivia whispered, her hand resting lightly on Maya's shoulder. The child had retreated further into herself with each new person who entered the room: the hospital administrator, 2 uniformed officers, and now a woman in plain clothes who had introduced herself as Detective Rebecca Morales from the Special Victims Unit. Maya's notebook was clutched against her chest like armor, her knuckles white with tension. She hadn't spoken since they'd left the safety of their table, answering questions with nods or shakes of her head, her eyes constantly seeking Olivia's for reassurance. Detective Morales crouched down to Maya's eye level, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. She had kind eyes that contrasted with the stern line of her mouth, and she kept her voice soft when she spoke. "Maya, I know this is scary, but we need to make sure you're safe tonight. Is there anyone besides your mom and Gerald who takes care of you sometimes? Maybe a grandparent or an aunt?" Maya shook her head, then hesitated. "My grandma died when I was 5. Mom says I have an aunt somewhere, but they don't talk. They had a fight before I was born." Detective Morales nodded, making a note in her small pad. "Do you know your aunt's name?" "Catherine," Maya whispered. "Mom called her Kathy, but she said it like it was a bad word." "That's helpful, thank you." The detective glanced up at Olivia. "Ms. Bennett, you mentioned you were formerly with Child Protective Services." 8 years, Olivia confirmed. "I worked primarily with placement and fostering in Suffolk County. Would you be willing to accompany us during the initial home assessment? Having someone she trusts might make this easier for Maya." Olivia felt Maya press slightly against her side. "Of course." Within the hour, they were seated in an unmarked police car, heading toward the address Maya had provided in the neighborhood of Dorchester. Maya sat between Olivia and a social worker named Tara Kim, who had arrived bearing an emergency placement kit, a backpack containing essentials for a child's first night in the system. "Is Mom going to be mad?" Maya asked suddenly, breaking her lengthy silence. "About the police?" Olivia chose her words carefully. "Your mom would want you to be safe, Maya. That's what all this is about. Making sure you're safe." Maya seemed to consider this. "Will they arrest Uncle Gerald?" Detective Morales, who was driving, exchanged a glance with her partner in the passenger seat. "We need to talk to him first," she said neutrally. "Find out what's going on." The car turned onto a street lined with triple-decker houses, their facades worn by decades of New England weather. They parked half a block away from Maya's building, and Detective Morales turned to face the back seat. "Maya, you'll stay in the car with Ms. Bennett and Ms. Kim. Officer Davis and I are going to talk to Gerald first. Okay?" Maya nodded, relief evident in the relaxing of her shoulders. "You'll need this," she said, reaching into her coat pocket and extracting a key attached to a plastic dinosaur keychain. "For the front door. The apartment is 2B. Detective Morales accepted the key with a gentle smile. "Thank you, Maya. You're being very brave." As the detectives exited the vehicle, Olivia noticed Maya's hand creep toward hers. She opened her palm, offering without demanding, and after a moment felt small fingers slide tentatively into place. "What happens next?" Maya asked, her voice small in the quiet car. Tara Kim answered with practiced gentleness. "After the police talk to Gerald, we'll find you a safe place to stay tonight. Tomorrow, there will be a hearing where a judge decides what happens next, while we locate your aunt or other relatives." "Will I have to talk to the judge?" "Probably not tomorrow," Tara assured her. "Right now, our job is just to make sure you're somewhere safe and comfortable." Maya's fingers tightened around Olivia's. "Can Ms. Olivia come too?" Tara hesitated, protocol warring with compassion on her face. "Ms. Bennett isn't officially part of our team, but I'll be there for the hearing," Olivia interjected firmly. "And I'll come visit you if that's allowed." Maya nodded, some of the tension leaving her small body. They sat in silence for several minutes, watching snow accumulate on the windshield. Then a burst of radio static made them all jump. "Request immediate backup at 1457 Dorchester Avenue," Apartment 2B, came Detective Morales' voice, tight with controlled urgency. Suspects attempting to flee. Possible destruction of evidence in progress. Tara immediately reached for her phone, while the officer in the driver's seat responded to the call. Olivia instinctively pulled Maya closer as the sound of sirens approached from multiple directions. "Is Uncle Gerald in trouble?" Maya asked, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "It sounds like he might be," Olivia answered honestly. "But you're safe here with us." Within minutes, the quiet street transformed as 3 police cruisers arrived, officers spilling out with practiced efficiency. Olivia watched through the windshield as 2 men were led from the building in handcuffs. Gerald, whom she recognized from Maya's description of his red hair and glasses, and another man carrying professional camera equipment. Maya shrank back against the seat. "That's Mr. Finch," she whispered. "He comes for business meetings. He brings the lights." Olivia exchanged a glance with Tara, whose expression confirmed what they both suspected. The business was exactly what they feared. The emergency children's shelter in Jamaica Plain was housed in what had once been a Victorian mansion, later converted to a temporary home for children awaiting placement. Despite efforts to make it welcoming, colorful murals, comfortable furniture, a playroom stocked with toys, it remained an institutional setting, a way station rather than a destination. Olivia stood in the entrance hall, watching as Maya was gently led upstairs by a night staff member named Joanne. The child had insisted Olivia come inside with her, clutching her hand through the intake process with quiet desperation. "We've got a private room for her," Joanne had explained. "Usually the older kids get those, but given the circumstances." Now, as Maya disappeared around the corner of the staircase, Olivia felt a strange hollowness in her chest. She'd done this hundreds of times in her previous career, handed children over to the system with professional detachment, telling herself she'd done all she could. Tonight felt different, personal in a way that was both uncomfortable and somehow right. "Ms. Bennett?" Olivia turned to find Detective Morales entering the building, snowflakes melting on her dark coat. The detective's face was grim with exhaustion. "Do you have a moment to talk?" They settled in the shelter's small kitchen, where a pot of coffee provided welcome warmth against the night's chill. Detective Morales cupped her mug with both hands, studying its contents before speaking. "We found evidence consistent with production of child exploitation material," she said without preamble. "Computer equipment, photography setup, financial records suggesting distribution. Gerald Reynolds has been operating this business for at least 2 years, based on the digital timestamps." Olivia's stomach clenched. "Any evidence that Maya was involved?" "Not directly, no," the detective said, and Olivia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "But there were photographs of children in similar situations, vulnerably housed, family members hospitalized or otherwise compromised. Reynolds appears to target families in crisis." "Predator behavior," Olivia murmured. "Exactly. He's looking at federal charges, significant prison time." Morales took a sip of her coffee, grimacing at its bitterness. "The problem is, Maya is our only witness to the peripheral activities, the business meetings, being locked out, his comments about her potentially being photographed. The other evidence is strong, but her testimony could be crucial in establishing the full scope of the operation. The implication hung between them. Maya would need to formally recount her experiences, potentially in court. "She's 8 years old," Olivia said, a protective edge entering her voice. "I know. We'll do everything possible to minimize her involvement, but she'll need to give a statement. Having someone she trusts present would help." Olivia nodded, already knowing she would be that person. "What about her mother? Has anyone spoken to her doctors?" "Diane Winters remains in a medically induced coma following traumatic brain injury. The prognosis is uncertain, but her physicians are planning to begin reducing sedation next week to assess function." Morales delivered this information with practiced neutrality, but her eyes reflected genuine concern. "For now, Maya has no legal guardian available. Emergency foster placement? That's the plan for now. The hearing is tomorrow at 9. Judge Harrigan is on rotation this week." Olivia couldn't help a small smile. Eleanor Harrigan? She's good. Thorough. You know her? We worked dozens of cases together when I was with CPS. She doesn't cut corners, but she genuinely cares about appropriate placement. Detective Morales studied Olivia with newfound interest. Why did you leave? If you don't mind my asking. The question caught Olivia off guard. She stared into her coffee, seeing reflections of cases past. Children returned to unsafe homes because of legal technicalities, promising placements disrupted by bureaucratic errors, the constant weight of knowing that wrong decisions could have devastating consequences. Burnout, she finally said. Too many cases, too few resources, too many nights wondering if I'd done enough. She glanced toward the staircase Maya had ascended. This is the first time in 3 years I've felt like I might have actually made a difference. Morales nodded with understanding. Well, your involvement made all the difference for Maya tonight. Without you noticing her, building that trust. She left the alternative unspoken. Will you be at the hearing tomorrow? Olivia asked. Yes, along with ADA Patterson. He'll be prosecuting the case against Reynolds. The detective stood, gathering her coat. See you in the morning, Ms. Bennett. Olivia, please. Rebecca, the detective offered in return, the formality between them dissolving into something more collegial. After Detective Morales departed, Olivia remained in the kitchen, reluctant to leave. She found herself calculating the hours until the hearing, mentally composing what she would say if called to testify about finding Maya. The familiar rhythms of case planning returned with surprising ease, as if they had merely been dormant rather than abandoned. Ms. Bennett. Joanne appeared in the doorway. Maya's asking for you. She's having trouble settling down. Upstairs, Maya sat cross-legged on a narrow bed, still fully dressed despite the late hour. Her notebook lay open beside her, a new drawing taking shape, a house with bars on the windows. That's a serious-looking house, Olivia commented, sitting on the edge of the bed. Maya's crayon paused mid-stroke. It's not a house, it's jail. For Uncle Gerald. She resumed drawing, adding a figure with red hair behind one of the barred windows. Is that where he is now? For tonight, yes. He's in a special holding cell at the police station. Good. The word carried a weight of conviction that seemed too heavy for her young voice. He can't lock people out of jail. Olivia watched as Maya added clouds above the building. Dark scribbles pressed hard enough to tear the paper in places. You know none of this is your fault, right? Maya shrugged, a gesture too world-weary for her 8 years. Mom always picks bad boyfriends. Even when they seem nice at first, they turn out bad. Has this happened before? With other boyfriends? Not the same, but bad. There was Rick who stole Mom's car. And before him was Darren who broke the TV when his team lost. She recited this history with detached precision. Mom says she has bad luck with men. Olivia chose her next words carefully. Your mom is in a tough situation right now. When people are dealing with difficult things, sometimes they make choices that aren't the best. Like drugs? Maya asked bluntly. Mom tries to hide it, but I know what those little bags are. We learned about drugs in health class before. She trailed off, her crayon stilling. Before you stopped going to school, Olivia finished gently. Maya, how long has it been since you attended classes? 23 days. Same as Mom being in the hospital. Maya set down her crayon and looked directly at Olivia for the first time since they'd arrived at the shelter. Am I in trouble for missing school? No, absolutely not. None of this is your fault. But what if they don't let me go back? I'm probably really behind now. And we were supposed to have the science fair in 2 weeks. Genuine distress colored her voice. I was making a model of the solar system. The normalcy of the concern amid such abnormal circumstances made Olivia's heart ache. I'm sure your teachers will help you catch up. And maybe you can still finish your science project. Maya seemed unconvinced. I don't even know where I'll be living. Or going to school. That's what tomorrow's hearing is about. Finding the best place for you to stay while your mom gets better. Will you be there? The question came with an urgency that transcended the casual way it was asked. Yes, Olivia promised. Front row. Maya nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. She closed her notebook and finally began to remove her coat, a sign of trust in her temporary surroundings. Would you stay until I fall asleep? Of course. As Maya changed into borrowed pajamas and slipped beneath the covers, Olivia pulled a chair beside the bed. Outside, the snow continued to fall, insulating the city in layers of white. Inside, in a room designed to be temporary, Maya's breathing gradually slowed toward sleep. Ms. Olivia? Her voice was already thick with approaching dreams. Yes, Maya. Thank you for the soup, and for finding me. Olivia gently tucked the blanket around Maya's shoulders. Thank you for letting yourself be found. Suffolk County Juvenile Court occupied a modern building that stood in stark contrast to Boston's historic architecture. Olivia had spent countless hours within its walls during her time with CPS, navigating its sterile corridors and impersonal conference rooms. Returning now as a civilian witness rather than a professional participant, offered a new perspective on its intimidating formality. She spotted Tara Kim in the waiting area outside courtroom 3, reviewing documents with focused intensity. The social worker looked up as Olivia approached, her expression brightening with recognition. Ms. Bennett, good morning. I was hoping you'd be here early. How's Maya? Olivia asked without preamble. Holding up remarkably well, considering. She's with our child advocate right now, getting oriented to the proceedings. Tara gestured to the bench beside her. There's been a development overnight I wanted to discuss with you. Olivia sat, anxiety tightening in her chest. What kind of development? We located Maya's aunt, Catherine Winters, living in Greenwich, Connecticut. She's been notified of the situation and is driving up this morning. That was fast. Modern databases, Tara said with a hint of pride. Plus it helps that she's employed by Yale University, which makes her easy to find. She's an associate professor in their psychology department. Has Maya been told? Not yet. We wanted to make sure Catherine was actually coming before getting Maya's hopes up. She should arrive before the hearing starts. Olivia processed this information, feeling an unexpected twinge of something like disappointment. A relative placement would be ideal for Maya, far better than the foster system. Yet Olivia found herself strangely reluctant to relinquish her connection to the child so quickly. What do we know about their estrangement? Maya mentioned her mother and aunt had some kind of falling out. Tara hesitated, glancing at her notes. Catherine was fairly candid on the phone. She said the estrangement stemmed from Diane's substance abuse issues and refusal to seek treatment. They haven't spoken in nearly 10 years. But Catherine was clear that she's prepared to take custody of Maya if necessary. 10 years is a long time, Olivia murmured. Yes, but family placement is always our priority when viable. And on paper, Catherine Winters seems ideal. Stable employment, clean background check, homeowner. Before Olivia could respond, the courtroom doors opened and Detective Morales emerged, accompanied by a tall, refined-looking woman in her early 40s. The woman's resemblance to Maya was immediately apparent, the same heart-shaped face and dark curls, though her hair was styled in a professional bob and streaked with early gray at the temples. Ms. Kim, Ms. Bennett, Detective Morales called. This is Dr. Catherine Winters, Maya's aunt. Catherine approached with confident strides, extending her hand first to Tara, then to Olivia. Her handshake was firm, her gaze direct and assessing. Thank you both for looking after my niece, she said, her voice carrying the slight polish of academia. Detective Morales has been filling me in on the situation. It's worse than I imagined. You haven't had any contact with your sister or Maya? Olivia asked, unable to keep a note of challenge from her voice. If Catherine noticed the tone, she didn't acknowledge it. None. Diane cut off communication when I confronted her about her drug use during her pregnancy with Maya. I tried reaching out when Maya was born, sent birthday cards for the first few years, but never received any response. A shadow of old pain crossed her features. Eventually, I stopped trying. Maya mentioned you, Olivia offered, softening slightly. She knew your name. Something like hope flickered in Catherine's eyes. She did? I wasn't sure Diane would have told her about me at all. Ms. Bennett was the one who found Maya, Detective Morales explained. She's been a key support through this process. Catherine turned to Olivia with new interest. Detective Morales mentioned you were hiding under a table together? In the hospital. Despite the gravity of the situation, Olivia felt her lips twitch toward a smile at the way it sounded. Maya had been seeking shelter there. I noticed her pattern and gained her trust over time. Thank God you did, Catherine said with genuine feeling. If you hadn't. The unfinished thought hung between them, the alternative too grim to voice. Their conversation was interrupted as a side door opened and Maya appeared, accompanied by a young woman who introduced herself as Zoe, the court's child advocate. Maya's steps faltered when she saw the group, her eyes moving uncertainly between the familiar faces and the stranger who resembled her. Maya, Tara said gently, this is your Aunt Catherine, your mother's sister. Maya studied Catherine with the same intense scrutiny she'd first directed at Olivia beneath the table. Catherine, to her credit, didn't rush forward or make demands of immediate connection. Instead, she crouched down to Maya's level, keeping a respectful distance. Hello, Maya. It's been a very long time since I've seen you. You were just a tiny baby then. Maya's hand sought Olivia's, finding it automatically. You look like Mom, but older. Catherine smiled, taking no offense at the observation. Yes, people always said we looked alike, though she got the better eyelashes. Maya seemed to appreciate this small admission of imperfection. Are you here for the hearing? I am. The judge is going to decide where you'll stay while your mom is in the hospital, and I wanted to be here for that. Maya's grip on Olivia's hand tightened. Ms. Olivia is coming to the hearing too. Catherine glanced up at Olivia, something unspoken passing between the women. An acknowledgement of Maya's attachment, a silent agreement not to compete for her trust. I'm glad, Catherine said simply. It sounds like Ms. Olivia has been taking very good care of you. Before the conversation could continue, a court officer appeared to announce that Judge Harrigan was ready to begin the proceedings. Maya will come in with me, Zoe explained, but she won't have to stay for the whole hearing. Judge Harrigan usually speaks with the child first, then continues with the legal aspects. Maya looked up at Olivia, panic flashing across her face. You're still coming, right? You promised. Front row, Olivia confirmed. Just like I said. They filed into the courtroom, where Judge Eleanor Harrigan presided with the focused efficiency Olivia remembered. Now in her 60s, the judge had a reputation for cutting through legal posturing to reach decisions in the best interest of children, occasionally bending procedural rules when she deemed it necessary. Good morning, Judge Harrigan began, her gaze landing on Maya with practiced gentleness. You must be Maya Winters. I'm Judge Harrigan, but you can call me Judge Eleanor if that's easier. Maya nodded solemnly, her hand still firmly in Olivia's despite Zoe's presence beside her. Maya, could you come up here and talk with me for a few minutes? Just us. The judge indicated a chair beside her bench, positioned so they could speak somewhat privately. Maya hesitated, looking between Olivia and the judge. Olivia gave her an encouraging nod. It's okay. I'll be right here. With visible reluctance, Maya released Olivia's hand and followed Zoe to the chair beside the judge. Judge Harrigan leaned in, speaking softly enough that only Maya could hear her words, though her kind expression and Maya's gradual relaxation suggested the conversation was going well. After several minutes, Judge Harrigan straightened and addressed the courtroom. Thank you, Maya. Zoe will take you to our waiting room now, where there are some books and art supplies. We grown-ups need to talk about some legal things, and then we'll let you know what happens next. Once Maya had been escorted out, the hearing proceeded with formal introductions of all parties. Assistant District Attorney Patterson summarized the criminal case against Gerald Reynolds. Detective Morales detailed the evidence found in the apartment, and Tara Kim presented her assessment of Maya's immediate needs. When Catherine Winters was called to speak, she presented her case for taking custody of Maya with the same clear logic she likely employed in her academic work. While I haven't been part of Maya's life due to circumstances outside my control, I am her closest blood relative and in a position to provide her with stability, safety, and appropriate care, she stated. I have a 3-bedroom home in a good school district, financial security, and flexible working hours that would allow me to be present for Maya's needs. Judge Harrigan listened attentively, making occasional notes. And how do you propose to handle Maya's relationship with her mother during Diane's recovery? I would facilitate appropriate contact, including hospital visits when permitted by medical staff, Catherine answered without hesitation. Despite our differences, I would never keep Maya from her mother if that relationship can be healthy and safe. The judge nodded, then turned to Olivia. Ms. Bennett, you're listed here as the reporting party and initial contact. Would you like to add anything to the record? Olivia hadn't expected to be called upon formally. She straightened in her seat, falling back on years of courtroom experience. Maya is an extraordinarily resilient child who has been failed by multiple adults in her life. She's developed survival strategies that no 8-year-old should need, including exceptional observation skills and the ability to make herself invisible when necessary. She paused, organizing her thoughts. What Maya needs now is consistency and honesty. She needs to know exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and who will be there for her through each step. She's had enough uncertainty and broken promises. Judge Harrigan studied Olivia thoughtfully. Ms. Kim mentions in her report that you have a background in child protective services, but left the profession 3 years ago. That's correct, Your Honor. Yet you've taken a personal interest in this case. It wasn't quite a question, but Olivia answered anyway. Maya trusted me when she had every reason not to trust anyone. I feel a responsibility to ensure that trust wasn't misplaced. The judge nodded, seeming satisfied with this response. She reviewed the documents before her for several moments, then looked up to address the room. Based on the evidence presented and my conversation with Maya, I am issuing an emergency placement order granting temporary custody to Catherine Winters, with supervised visitation to Diane Winters when medically appropriate. She turned specifically to Catherine. Dr. Winters, this placement is provisional pending a full home study and further assessment of Maya's needs. You will be required to cooperate with ongoing case management through the Department of Children and Families. Catherine nodded her understanding and acceptance of these terms. Judge Harrigan continued, additionally, I'm ordering that Maya begin trauma-focused therapy immediately with a provider experienced in cases involving potential exploitation. Her gaze shifted to the ADA. Mr. Patterson, I expect your office to handle any questioning of Maya with extreme sensitivity. Child-friendly protocols are to be followed at all times, and her therapy schedule is to take precedence over investigative needs. Of course, Your Honor, the ADA agreed. Finally, Judge Harrigan said, her eyes now finding Olivia. Given Maya's established trust with Ms. Bennett, I'm recommending that she be included in Maya's transition plan as appropriate, with specific attention to maintaining this supportive relationship during the adjustment period. Olivia felt a wave of relief wash through her. She hadn't realized how much she'd been dreading a complete severing of contact with Maya until this moment. Court will reassess this placement in 30 days, at which time we'll review progress and determine next steps. Judge Harrigan closed her folder with a sense of finality. Ms. Kim, please bring Maya back in so we can explain the decision. When Maya returned, the judge explained in child-appropriate language that she would be going to live with her Aunt Catherine in Connecticut while her mother recovered in the hospital. Will I have to change schools? Maya asked, the practical question revealing her priority. Yes, Judge Harrigan answered honestly. You'll go to a school near your aunt's house. But Ms. Kim tells me you've missed some school recently, so this will be a fresh start. Maya absorbed this information with a seriousness that belied her age. Then she asked the question Olivia had been expecting. What about Ms. Olivia? The judge smiled gently. Ms. Olivia can stay in touch with you and visit sometimes if that's okay with your aunt. She glanced at Catherine, who nodded her agreement. She's been an important person for you, and we don't want to change that. Maya's shoulders relaxed slightly. Can she come with us today? To Aunt Catherine's house. Catherine stepped forward. Actually, I thought maybe Ms. Olivia could help us gather your things from the apartment. The police said we can go there now that they've finished their work. Would that be okay? Maya's face brightened with the first genuine smile Olivia had seen. Yes, I can show her my books. And my solar system project. As the hearing concluded and they prepared to leave the courthouse, Olivia found herself standing slightly apart, watching as Catherine gently guided Maya toward the future that awaited them. The aunt's hand hovered near Maya's shoulder without quite touching it, respecting boundaries while offering presence. It was exactly the right approach, and Olivia felt a growing confidence in Judge Harrigan's decision. Ms. Bennett. Olivia turned to find Detective Morales beside her. I wanted to update you, the detective said quietly. Diane Winter's doctors have decided to begin reducing her sedation tomorrow, earlier than initially planned. Her intracranial pressure has stabilized enough to attempt it. That's good news, Olivia said, though the detective's expression suggested complications. It is, but it also means we need to prepare for her potential re-entry into this situation. If she regains consciousness and sufficient cognitive function, she'll have legal rights regarding Maya. The unspoken question hung between them. Would Diane's return be in Maya's best interest? One bridge at a time, Olivia murmured, watching as Maya tentatively showed her notebook to Catherine, who responded with what appeared to be genuine interest rather than performative enthusiasm. Ms. Olivia, Maya called, waving her over. Are you ready to go to the apartment now? Aunt Catherine says we can get all my things, even my big ones. As Olivia joined them, Catherine gave her a look of quiet understanding. I've explained to Maya that she can bring anything she wants to my house, and that you'll help us make sure we don't forget anything important. The subtext was clear. Catherine recognized Olivia's role in Maya's life and wasn't threatened by it. Instead, she was incorporating Olivia into this transition, creating a bridge rather than a barrier. I'm ready whenever you are, Olivia said to Maya, whose smile widened in response. Outside, the snow had stopped, and the February sun emerged from behind clouds, creating a dazzling brightness as it reflected off the white-covered city. Maya walked between the two women, occasionally glancing from one to the other as if confirming they were both still there, still real. Olivia thought of the long road ahead, Diane's uncertain recovery, the criminal case against Gerald, Maya's need for therapy and stability. There would be difficult conversations and painful realizations. There would be progress and setbacks. The system that Olivia had once fled from disillusionment would continue to be imperfect, bureaucratic, and sometimes painfully slow. But watching Maya reach out to take Catherine's hand, seeing the careful way the aunt received this gift of trust, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not the naive hope of perfect solutions, but the grounded hope that came from witnessing resilience, from seeing broken systems occasionally bend toward justice, from remembering that even in the darkest circumstances, someone stopping to pay attention could change everything. The apartment on Dorchester Avenue bore the disheveled aftermath of a police search. Drawers left open, furniture slightly askew. The subtle disruption of spaces once private now examined and documented by strangers. Yellow crime scene tape still hung limply from the front door frame, though they'd been given clearance to enter. Maya moved through the rooms with the detached efficiency of someone used to packing quickly, gathering essentials with practiced hands. She led Olivia to a small bedroom that had obviously been hers before Gerald's arrival. Now half emptied, her possessions pushed against one wall to make space for photography equipment that had since been confiscated. My solar system was under the bed, Maya explained, kneeling to peer into the darkness beneath the frame. Uncle Gerald said I had to hide it because it took up too much space. She emerged with a partially completed science project, styrofoam balls of various sizes painted to represent planets, attached to metal wires meant to show their orbits around a central sun. Several of the planets had become detached, their orbits bent from being stored improperly. It's broken, Maya said, disappointment evident in her voice. Not broken, Olivia corrected gently. Just needs some repairs. I bet your aunt could help you fix it. She's a professor, so she probably knows a lot about science projects. Maya considered this possibility. Maybe we could finish it together. You and me and Aunt Catherine. I'd like that. They continued collecting Maya's belongings, clothes, books, a small collection of well-worn stuffed animals. In the kitchen, Maya hesitated before the refrigerator, where a child's drawing was attached with a magnet shaped like a ladybug. "That's Mom's favorite," she said, carefully removing it. "It's us at the beach. From last summer." Olivia studied the crayon drawing. Two stick figures on a strip of blue, holding hands beneath a yellow sun. Simple but unmistakably rendered with love. "We should take it," Olivia suggested. "Your mom will want it when she wakes up." Maya nodded, folding the drawing with deliberate care and placing it in her notebook for safekeeping. They moved methodically through the remainder of the apartment, gathering what mattered and leaving behind what didn't. In what had been Diane's bedroom, Maya paused before a small jewelry box on the dresser. "Mom's special things are in here, the ones that belong to Grandma." She opened it to reveal a modest collection: a strand of pearls, a silver bracelet, a pair of earrings shaped like crescent moons. Among these treasures was a small photograph, creased from being folded and unfolded many times. Maya lifted it carefully, showing it to Olivia. "That's Mom and Aunt Catherine," she explained. "When they were young." The photograph showed two teenage girls with their arms around each other's shoulders, laughing at something beyond the camera's view. Their resemblance was striking. The same dark curls, the same heart-shaped faces that Maya had inherited. They looked happy, unburdened by whatever conflict would eventually drive them apart. "We should take this too," Olivia said softly. "For your aunt." Maya considered this, then nodded, placing the photo alongside her mother's drawing in the notebook. "Mom kept it even though they weren't speaking. That means something, right?" "Yes," Olivia agreed. "It definitely means something." As they prepared to leave, boxes and bags of Maya's possessions gathered by the door, Catherine returned from speaking with the landlord. She'd been explaining the situation, arranging for Diane's belongings to be placed in storage rather than discarded. "All set?" she asked, surveying the collection. "Maya, is there anything else important we need to take today?" Maya did a final scan of the apartment, her gaze lingering on what had been her home for the past 3 years. Despite the disruption caused by Gerald, despite the broken solar system and the nights spent locked out, this had been her space with her mother. Leaving it felt significant. "I think we have everything," she said finally, her small voice steady despite the enormity of the transition. Catherine nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. "If we forget anything, we can always come back. Nothing here will disappear." As they loaded Maya's possessions into Catherine's SUV, Olivia noticed the child clutching her notebook more tightly than usual. The repository of her drawings, the safe space for her mother's photo and her own memories, had become even more precious now that physical distance would separate her from these rooms. "Maya," Olivia said gently as they prepared to depart, "I was thinking I could visit you and your aunt next weekend. Maybe help with that solar system project." Maya's face brightened. "Really? You'd come all the way to Connecticut?" "It's not so far," Olivia assured her. "Just a couple of hours by train." Catherine added her support without hesitation. "We'd love to have you. Maybe you could stay for dinner. See Maya's new room once we've set it up." The invitation was genuine, Olivia could tell, not merely a courtesy offered for Maya's benefit. Catherine seemed to genuinely recognize the value of maintaining this connection during the transition. As they walked toward the vehicles, Maya and her possessions would travel with Catherine, while Olivia would return to the hospital for her afternoon shift. Detective Morales pulled up to the curb. She emerged from her unmarked car with a sense of urgency that immediately captured their attention. "I'm glad I caught you," she said, slightly breathless. "I just received a call from Mercy General. Diane Winters showed signs of increased responsiveness during this morning's assessment. They've accelerated the timeline for reducing sedation. She could regain consciousness as early as tomorrow." Maya froze, her backpack sliding unnoticed from her shoulder to the snowy sidewalk. "Mom's waking up?" The detective nodded, her expression carefully neutral. "The doctors are cautiously optimistic, but they want to manage expectations. Brain injuries are complex, Maya. Your mom might need time to fully recover, even after she wakes up. But she's going to wake up, Maya insisted, hope and fear warring in her voice. And then she'll get better and everything can go back to normal. The adults exchanged glances over Maya's head, a silent acknowledgement of the complications her mother's recovery would introduce. Normal had not been particularly safe or stable for Maya even before Gerald entered the picture. Your mom will need time to heal, Catherine said gently, crouching to Maya's level. And while she's healing, you'll have a safe place with me. That's what today is about. Making sure you're taken care of while your mom gets better. But I can visit her, right? Maya looked between the adults, seeking confirmation. When she wakes up? Of course, Catherine assured her. As soon as her doctors say it's okay. Detective Morales added, I'll make sure you're notified immediately when there's a change in her condition. Maya seemed satisfied with these promises. She retrieved her backpack from the snow, brushing it off with careful attention before slinging it over her shoulder again. I should bring Mom's favorite drawing when we visit, so she has something nice to look at when she wakes up. That's a lovely idea, Olivia said, her throat tight with emotion at Maya's resilience, her ability to think of her mother's comfort even amid her own upheaval. As they finished loading the car, Maya suddenly turned and threw her arms around Olivia's waist, hugging her with fierce intensity. Thank you for finding me, she whispered, echoing her words from the night before. Olivia returned the embrace, bending to kiss the top of Maya's head. I'll see you next weekend, she promised. We'll fix that solar system together. Maya nodded against Olivia's coat before releasing her and climbing into Catherine's SUV, her notebook clutched protectively to her chest. Through the window, she waved as the vehicle pulled away from the curb, heading toward the highway that would take her to Connecticut, to a new chapter that held both uncertainty and promise. Detective Morales remained beside Olivia as they watched the SUV disappear around a corner. You've made a real difference for that child, she said quietly. She's the one who amazes me, Olivia replied. Her resilience, her capacity for trust despite everything. That trust exists because of you, the detective pointed out. You saw her when no one else did. Olivia considered this as they stood in the cold winter air, snowmelt dripping from awnings around them in the unexpected February sunshine. I was hiding too in my own way, she admitted. Hiding from the work I used to believe in, from the difference I could make. And now, Olivia turned toward her car, a decision crystallizing. Now I need to make a phone call to Suffolk County CPS. I'm not sure if they still have openings in the family reunification unit, but it's time I found out. Detective Morales smiled, understanding the significance of this shift. Something tells me they'd be lucky to have you back. As Olivia drove toward the hospital for her afternoon shift, one of her last, she suspected, her thoughts turned to the journey ahead. Diane's recovery would introduce new complexities. The case against Gerald would require Maya's testimony, carefully managed to avoid re-traumatization. Catherine and Maya would need to build a relationship across the gap of years and circumstances. None of it would be simple or straightforward. The systems involved medical, legal, social services, would sometimes work at cross-purposes, creating frustrations and delays. But something fundamental had shifted in Olivia's perspective. Where once she had seen only the flaws and failures of these systems, she now recognized again the possibility for healing within them, for connections that could sustain even through difficulty. She thought of Maya's solar system project, its delicate orbits bent but reparable. With the right support, with careful hands and patience, it could be restored not to an idealized perfection, but to a functioning model that demonstrated the complex dance of bodies moving through space, each affecting the others, all connected by invisible forces of gravity and light. By the time Olivia arrived at Mercy General, slipping her badge through the staff entrance scanner, she had already composed her email to her former supervisor at CPS. The message was brief but clear. She was ready to return to the work she had been trained for, to the calling she had temporarily lost faith in. Because sometimes the most important thing wasn't fixing a broken system all at once, but finding the one child hiding beneath a table and offering them soup, offering them safety, offering them the simple dignity of being seen. As she stepped into the hospital corridor, Olivia glanced toward the pediatric waiting area, toward the table with the potted plant where she had first truly seen Maya. The space was occupied now by a harried mother trying to corral twin toddlers, the ordinary chaos of family life unfolding where, just days before, a child had fought for survival in silence. Olivia's phone vibrated with an incoming text. It was from Catherine, accompanied by a photo of Maya in the passenger seat of the SUV. Her face turned toward the window as she watched the Massachusetts landscape give way to Connecticut. Her expression somber but steady, just past the state line. Maya asked if you could help her paint Neptune when you visit. Said it's the hardest one to get right. Catherine. Olivia smiled as she typed her response. Tell her I'll bring my best blue paint, and that Neptune has 13 moons she might want to include. The reply came quickly. She says that's a lot of moons to keep track of, but she thinks it's worth trying. Worth trying. The simple phrase captured everything about the road ahead, for Maya, for Diane, for the systems meant to protect children like her. Worth trying, despite the complexity, despite the possibility of failure. As Olivia slipped her phone back into her pocket and prepared for her shift, she carried with her the image of Maya looking toward the horizon, facing whatever came next with the quiet courage that had kept her alive through 23 days of abandonment, through cold nights and broken promises, through a system that had finally, imperfectly, begun to work for her instead of against her. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Those didn't exist in the real world of child protection and family trauma. But it was a beginning, tentative and hopeful. And sometimes that was enough. The recovery room on Mercy General's third floor was bathed in the pale golden light of early spring. Outside the window, March had arrived with unexpected gentleness, melting February's harsh snow into rivulets that coursed down gutters and nourished the first tentative crocuses pushing through softened earth. Inside, machines hummed in rhythmic constancy, monitoring the vital signs of a woman whose consciousness was gradually returning from a place beyond reach. Diane Winters lay against white hospital sheets, her dark hair, so like her daughter's, spread across the pillow in stark contrast. The bruising on her face had faded from angry purple to yellowish green, and the swelling had subsided enough to reveal the delicate bone structure she had passed to Maya. The ventilator had been removed 3 days prior, replaced by a simple oxygen cannula that hooked behind her ears. Her latest scans show continued improvement. Dr. Patel explained to the small group gathered in the hallway outside. Olivia, Catherine, and Detective Morales. We've completely discontinued sedation, and she's showing increasingly purposeful movements. She's in what we call a minimally conscious state now, rather than a true coma. What does that mean exactly? Catherine asked, her professor's precision evident in the carefully formulated question. It means she's having periods of wakefulness, though not yet full awareness, the neurologist clarified. She's demonstrated some tracking movements with her eyes and has responded to certain commands. Squeezing a hand, for instance. These are encouraging signs, but I want to emphasize that recovery from traumatic brain injury is rarely linear. There will likely be plateaus and possibly setbacks. Detective Morales nodded her understanding. And cognitive function? Memory? The question held layers of significance beyond medical curiosity. The case against Gerald Reynolds was proceeding through the legal system, with an indictment secured on multiple federal charges related to child exploitation. Diane's testimony, her knowledge or lack thereof about Gerald's activities, her decision to leave Maya in his care, could significantly impact both the criminal case and future custody determinations. It's too early to make definitive assessments, Dr. Patel said cautiously. Some patients with similar injuries experience retrograde amnesia, loss of memories from before the trauma. Others have difficulty forming new memories. Many experience both initially but improve over time. Olivia, who had been quiet during this exchange, finally spoke. When can Maya see her? The question brought them back to the most immediate concern. The 8-year-old girl who had been living with her aunt in Connecticut for 3 weeks now, attending a new school, sleeping in a new bedroom, all while waiting for news of her mother's awakening. I believe she could visit tomorrow, Dr. Patel said after consideration. Brief contact would be appropriate, with proper preparation for what to expect. Ms. Winters isn't speaking yet and may not recognize Maya immediately, which could be distressing. We'll prepare her, Catherine assured him. Maya's been working with her therapist on understanding brain injuries. She knows her mom might be different for a while. The therapist had been Dr. Harrigan's most insistent requirement, twice-weekly sessions with a specialist in childhood trauma. Maya had initially resisted, suspicious of yet another adult asking questions about her life, but had gradually developed a rapport with Dr. Lenore Thomas, a gentle woman with a knack for connecting through art therapy. I'll arrange for a child life specialist to be present for the visit as well, Dr. Patel offered. Someone who can help explain what's happening in age-appropriate terms and support Maya through the experience. As the neurologist departed, Detective Morales checked her watch. The ADA wants to update you both on the case status. He's waiting in the family consultation room. They found Assistant District Attorney Patterson reviewing documents in the small, blandly comfortable room designed for difficult conversations with patients' families. He rose as they entered, extending his hand first to Catherine, then to Olivia, a courtesy that reflected their now-established roles in Maya's life. Thank you for meeting on short notice, he began once they were seated. I wanted to discuss some developments in the Reynolds case, particularly as they relate to Maya. Olivia felt tension gather between her shoulder blades. What kind of developments? The federal prosecutor has joined our case, given the interstate aspects of the exploitation network. The evidence from Gerald's computers and equipment is damning. They've identified at least 12 victims across 3 states. And Maya, Catherine prompted, her voice steady despite the horror implicit in the ADA's words. As we suspected from the beginning, Gerald never actually photographed Maya, Patterson confirmed. But his text messages indicate he was planning to include her in his operation. The messages to his associate Finch are explicit on this point. Relief and renewed outrage mingled in Olivia's chest. So Maya won't need to testify? That's what I wanted to discuss, Patterson said, his expression grave. Maya's testimony about Gerald's behavior, locking her out during business meetings, his comments about her potentially posing for photographs, would strengthen our case significantly. Without it, we're limited to the evidence of his intentions regarding Maya specifically. She's 8 years old, Catherine said flatly. She's just beginning to feel secure again. I understand your concerns, Patterson assured her. And I want to be clear, we have more than enough evidence to put Reynolds away for decades regardless. This would be about maximizing the charges, ensuring there's no possibility of early release. Olivia leaned forward, choosing her words carefully. What exactly would testifying involve for Maya? We would take a recorded statement in a child-friendly environment, with proper support personnel present. Given her age, she wouldn't testify in open court. The recording would be used instead. The defense would submit questions to be asked by a neutral party. And she would have to talk about everything again, Olivia said, not quite a question. Relive it. Patterson didn't minimize this reality. Yes, though her therapist could be present, and we would limit the scope as much as legally possible. Catherine and Olivia exchanged glances, a silent communication born of their 3 weeks of coordinated efforts on Maya's behalf. Neither needed to voice their shared protective instinct, nor their understanding that this decision ultimately belonged to Maya herself. We'll need to discuss this with Dr. Thomas, Catherine said finally, to understand the potential impact on Maya's recovery. And then, if she believes it wouldn't be harmful, we'll ask Maya what she wants to do. Patterson nodded his acceptance of these terms. Of course, there's no immediate rush, the trial is months away. But the sooner we know her decision, the better we can prepare. As the meeting concluded and they prepared to leave the hospital, Olivia found herself lingering in the doorway of Diane's room, studying the unconscious woman whose choices had played such a critical role in Maya's circumstances. In sleep, with the hard edges of addiction and survival softened, Diane looked younger, closer to the laughing teenager in the photograph Maya had saved. The sister Catherine had lost to substances and bad decisions years before. She was brilliant in school, Catherine said quietly, joining Olivia in the doorway. Creative, vibrant, the kind of person who lit up a room. She paused, swallowing visibly. The drugs took that first, long before they took her stability or her judgment. Olivia nodded, understanding the complicated grief in Catherine's voice. Mourning not just for who Diane had become, but for who she had been before. Maya has that same light, she observed. That same resilience. Yes, Catherine agreed, though she shouldn't have needed to be so resilient so young. There was no judgment in her tone, only sadness for what Maya had endured and determination that the child's future would be different. This balanced perspective was part of why Judge Harrigan's placement decision had proven so appropriate. Catherine neither demonized nor excused her sister, but held the complex truth of who Diane was and what Maya needed going forward. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" Olivia asked as they walked toward the elevator. "For Maya's visit?" Catherine's expression was thoughtful. "As ready as we can be. We've talked about what her mom might look like, how she might respond. Maya's bringing her mother's favorite drawing and a letter she wrote about her new school." She sighed softly. "She's so determined to believe her mother will simply wake up and everything will go back to normal." "That's natural at her age," Olivia said. "The therapist warned us she might cling to that hope." "I know, and I'm trying to support her optimism while gently preparing her for reality." The elevator arrived, and they stepped inside. "She's made such progress these past weeks. I just don't want her to lose ground." The progress had been remarkable, considering the circumstances. Maya had adapted to Catherine's home with determined resilience, arranged her new bedroom with careful precision, and even begun to form tentative friendships at her new school. But beneath the adaptation, Olivia recognized the hypervigilance of a child accustomed to instability. Maya's habit of checking exits, her meticulous organization of her possessions for quick packing, her constant awareness of adults' moods and movements. "Have you given more thought to what happens next?" Olivia asked as they reached the parking level. "If Diane regains full consciousness?" It was the question that had hovered between them for weeks, rarely voiced but constantly present. Judge Harrigan's temporary custody order would eventually require reconsideration in light of Diane's recovery, or lack thereof. "I've consulted with a family law attorney," Catherine admitted, "to understand the options. Not because I want to keep Maya from Diane, but because I want to be prepared for all possibilities." Olivia nodded her understanding. "And the possibilities are?" "If Diane makes a full recovery and can demonstrate stability, sobriety, appropriate housing, income, the court would likely favor reunification with supervised visits initially." Catherine's clinical tone belied the emotion behind the words. "If her recovery is partial, or if she can't maintain sobriety, I could petition for permanent guardianship while still facilitating their relationship." The arrangement made sense from both legal and emotional perspectives, maintaining Maya's connection to her mother while ensuring the stability the child desperately needed. Yet Olivia could see the weight of it on Catherine's shoulders, the responsibility of navigating this delicate balance between sister and niece, between past attachments and future security. "You know I'm here to help however I can," Olivia offered as they reached Catherine's SUV. "The paperwork for my transfer back to Suffolk County CPS went through last week. I'll be based in Boston again, specializing in family reunification cases." Catherine smiled, genuine warmth replacing the tension that had gripped her through the meetings. "Maya will be thrilled. She's been counting the days until your visit this weekend." She hesitated, then added, "And for what it's worth, I'm glad too. This would be much harder to navigate alone." As they parted ways, Catherine to drive back to Connecticut, Olivia to her apartment in Cambridge, Olivia reflected on the unlikely alliance that had formed around Maya's needs. Detective Morales providing updates and advocacy within the legal system. Dr. Thomas guiding Maya through the labyrinth of her emotions. Catherine creating a stable home while honoring Maya's connection to her mother. And Olivia herself, bridging the gaps between these worlds, applying her professional knowledge in service of a child who had crawled beneath a table and into her heart. It wasn't the family Maya had been born into, but it was the family that circumstance and choice had created for her, imperfect, unconventional, but fiercely committed to her well-being. The following day dawned clear and unusually warm for early March in Boston. Maya insisted on wearing her favorite dress for the hospital visit, a blue corduroy jumper with yellow flowers embroidered along the hem, paired with the new tights Catherine had purchased to replace her worn ones. She'd brushed her hair with unusual care and placed her mother's drawing and letter in a folder decorated with carefully drawn stars. "You look beautiful," Olivia told her as they met in the hospital lobby. She had driven in from Boston to join them for this crucial reunion, arriving early to check on Diane's condition before Maya's visit. Maya's face brightened at the compliment, though anxiety still shadowed her eyes. "Is Mom awake? Can she talk yet?" Olivia chose her words with care, as they had all agreed to be honest without being frightening. "She's having what the doctors call waking periods, where her eyes are open, but she's not fully alert yet. She might not be able to talk today, but that doesn't mean she can't hear you." Maya nodded, processing this information with the seriousness she brought to all medical updates about her mother. Dr. Thomas said sometimes people's brains need time to remember how to do things like talking, but the memories are still inside, like books on a shelf that someone needs to find again. "That's a good way of thinking about it," Catherine affirmed, resting a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "Are you ready to go up?" The child squared her shoulders, a visible gathering of courage. "Ready." The elevator ride to the third floor passed in anticipatory silence. As promised, a child life specialist named Andrea met them at the nurse's station, introducing herself to Maya with warm professionalism. "I'm here to help explain what you'll see and answer any questions," she told Maya. "Your mom has some equipment around her bed that helps the doctors monitor how she's doing. It might look scary at first, but it's all there to help her get better." Maya listened attentively, asking practical questions about the machines and tubes with the matter-of-fact curiosity of a child who had spent too much of her young life adapting to difficult circumstances. When Andrea had answered each question, Maya turned to Olivia and Catherine. "I'm ready now," she said with quiet determination. Diane's room was dimly lit to reduce stimulation, the blinds partially drawn against the morning sun. She lay still against the pillows, but her eyes were open, staring vacantly toward the ceiling. A nurse stood beside the bed, adjusting the rate of an eye. "V-drip. She's having a good morning," the nurse told them softly, responded to her name twice during rounds. Maya hung back in the doorway for a long moment, studying her mother's face with intense concentration. Then, with a deep breath that seemed to fill her small frame with resolve, she approached the bedside. "Hi, Mom," she said clearly. "It's Maya. I brought your picture, the one from the beach that you like." There was no immediate response from Diane, but Maya continued undeterred, pulling a chair close to the bed with assistance from Andrea. She carefully removed the drawing from her folder, holding it where her mother could see it if she turned her head. "Remember when we drew this? It was right after we went to Revere Beach and you let me bury your feet in the sand. You said the water was too cold, but I didn't think so." As Maya spoke, continuing a gentle monologue of memories and updates about her new school, Olivia watched for any sign of recognition in Diane's expression. For several minutes, there was nothing, just the vacant stare and shallow breathing of someone not fully present in her body. Then, as Maya described the solar system project she was rebuilding with Catherine's help, something shifted. Diane's eyes moved, tracking slowly toward the sound of her daughter's voice. Her fingers twitched against the sheets, and her lips parted slightly as if trying to form words. "Mom!" Maya's voice lifted with cautious hope. "Can you hear me?" Diane's gaze focused on Maya's face, not fully comprehending, perhaps, but definitely seeing. Her hand moved again, fingers extending toward her daughter in a gesture unmistakable in its intent despite its weakness. Maya looked to Andrea, seeking permission, and when the specialist nodded, she carefully placed her small hand in her mother's. "I'm here, Mom. I've been staying with Aunt Catherine while you get better. She has a nice house with a big yard. And MS. Olivia visits on weekends. We're fixing my solar system together." At the continued sound of Maya's voice, tears welled in Diane's eyes and spilled silently down her cheeks. Her fingers curled weakly around her daughter's hand, holding on with what little strength she possessed. "She recognizes you," Andrea said softly. "This is an excellent response." Maya beamed, her own eyes bright with unshed tears. "I knew she would," she said with absolute conviction. "I knew she could hear me all those days I visited, even when the doctors said she was sleeping." For the remainder of the visit, Maya continued to talk to her mother, showing her the letter she'd written, describing her new room at Catherine's house, recounting small triumphs from her new school. Diane drifted in and out of focus, but each time she returned, her gaze sought Maya's face with increasing awareness. Near the end of their allotted time, as Maya was explaining how Olivia had helped her paint Neptune exactly the right shade of blue, Diane's lips moved more purposefully, struggling to form a word. Maya fell silent, leaning closer to listen. Ma. The sound was barely audible, more breath than voice, but unmistakable in its effort. "Maya," Catherine supplied gently from where she stood at the foot of the bed. "She's trying to say your name." Diane's eyes shifted to Catherine, recognition flickering in their depths. Not just of Maya now, but of her sister as well. The complexity of that recognition was evident in the furrow of her brow, the slight tensing of her features. "It's okay, Mom," Maya assured her quickly. "Aunt Catherine is taking really good care of me, and she's going to bring me back to visit you lots of times." The tension in Diane's face eased somewhat at Maya's words. Her gaze returned to her daughter, and with visible effort, she managed a single word: "Safe." The question contained volumes: concern, love, and perhaps a flicker of awareness about the circumstances that had led to this moment. "I'm very safe," Maya confirmed, squeezing her mother's hand gently. "And when you're all better, we can figure everything out together." It was the perfect response, honest yet hopeful, acknowledging both the present reality and future possibilities without false promises. Olivia felt a surge of pride in Maya's emotional intelligence, her capacity to hold complex truths despite her young age. As their visit concluded and they prepared to leave, Diane's eyes began to drift closed, the effort of maintaining consciousness clearly exhausting her limited resources. Maya carefully placed her drawing on the bedside table where her mother would see it upon waking. "I'll come back soon," she promised, leaning forward to place a gentle kiss on her mother's cheek. "Keep getting better, okay?" In the hallway outside, Maya's composure finally cracked. She turned to Catherine, pressing her face against her aunt's sweater as silent tears gave way to the release of weeks of worry and uncertainty. Catherine held her niece close, murmuring reassurances as she met Olivia's eyes over Maya's head. "She recognized me," Maya said when she could speak again, wonder in her voice. "And she wanted to know if I was safe." "That's what mothers do," Catherine said softly. "They worry about their children's safety, even when they're the ones in hospital beds." Maya nodded, wiping her eyes with the tissue Andrea offered. "Do you think she'll be able to talk more next time?" "It's very possible," Andrea answered honestly. "Brain recovery can happen quite quickly once it begins. But remember what we discussed, it might not be a straight line. There might be good days and harder days. Like my solar system," Maya said thoughtfully. "Some parts are easier to fix than others." The child's capacity for creating meaningful metaphors never ceased to amaze Olivia. It was part of what had helped Maya survive. This ability to make sense of her world through patterns and connections, to find order in chaos. As they walked toward the elevator, Maya between Catherine and Olivia, the child's step was lighter than it had been on arrival, as if a weight had shifted if not entirely lifted. She glanced up at Olivia with renewed purpose in her expression. "I've decided about the testimony thing," she announced. "The recording for the police about Uncle Gerald." Olivia exchanged a surprised look with Catherine. They had planned to discuss the ADA's request with Maya later, after consulting with Dr. Thomas about the potential psychological impact. "How did you know about that?" Catherine asked gently. "I heard you talking about it yesterday on the phone," Maya admitted. "I wasn't trying to listen. But the walls in your house are thinner than in our apartment." Rather than chastising her for eavesdropping, Catherine simply nodded her acknowledgement. "And what have you decided?" "I want to do it," Maya said firmly. "Not because I want to think about Uncle Gerald again, but because of the other kids in the pictures. The ones like me but who didn't have someone find them under a table." She looked up at Olivia. "If I tell what happened, it might help them too, right?" Olivia felt her throat tighten with emotion. "It might, yes. It could help make sure Gerald stays in jail for a very long time, which would protect a lot of children." Maya nodded, her decision clearly made. "Then I'll do it. But I want you both to be there. And I want to practice with Dr. Thomas first so I know what to say." Her conditions were perfectly reasonable, protective measures that Olivia and Catherine would have insisted upon regardless. What struck Olivia most was Maya's motivation. Not vengeance or self-protection, but concern for other vulnerable children. Even after all she had endured, Maya's capacity for empathy remained intact, perhaps even strengthened by her experiences. "We'll arrange it," Catherine assured her. "But only when you're ready, and only in a way that feels safe for you." Maya seemed satisfied with this promise. As they exited the hospital into the unusual warmth of the March afternoon, she paused to tilt her face toward the sun, closing her eyes briefly against its brightness. "It feels like spring," she observed, "like things are growing again." It was a simple statement, but one that carried layers of meaning for the adults who had witnessed her journey from the shadows beneath the hospital table to this moment of cautious hope. Growth was happening. Not just in the early crocuses pushing through the soil or the leaf buds forming on the trees lining the hospital drive, but in Maya herself, in her mother's gradual awakening, in the healing of wounds both visible and hidden. "Yes," Olivia agreed, offering her hand to Maya, who took it without hesitation. "It definitely does." The basement conference room at the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office had been transformed in accordance with child-friendly interview protocols. Gone were the imposing legal trappings, replaced by comfortable furniture, soft lighting, and art supplies available should Maya need a break or an alternative means of expression during her testimony. 2 months had passed since Diane's initial awakening. Spring had fully arrived in Boston, bringing with it significant developments in both Maya's living situation and the case against Gerald Reynolds. Diane had made remarkable progress in her physical recovery, graduating from the hospital to a rehabilitation facility where she participated in daily speech, occupational, and physical therapy. Her cognitive function had largely returned, though short-term memory issues persisted, along with weakness on her left side from the brain injury. More challenging was her emotional recovery. Faced with the consequences of her choices, particularly Gerald's exploitation of her vulnerable circumstances to access children, Diane had initially responded with denial and defensive anger. But as her healing progressed, harsh reality had given way to devastating guilt, particularly regarding Maya's experiences during her hospitalization. The turning point came during a supervised visit in April, when Maya had innocently mentioned sleeping behind the McDonald's dumpsters on particularly cold nights. Diane's anguished response had led to a breakthrough session with her substance abuse counselor, followed by her voluntary enrollment in an intensive inpatient treatment program once her medical rehabilitation concluded. "I can't change what happened," she had told Catherine and Olivia during their last visit to the rehabilitation center. "But I can make sure it never happens again." Maya deserves a mother who puts her safety first, always. This commitment had shaped the evolving custody arrangements. Judge Harrigan had extended Catherine's temporary guardianship for an additional 6 months, with a clear reunification plan dependent on Diane's successful completion of treatment, securing appropriate housing, and demonstrating consistent sobriety. In the meantime, Maya would continue living with Catherine, with increasingly regular visits to her mother as Diane's recovery allowed. Now, as May sunshine streamed through the narrow windows of the conference room, Maya sat between Catherine and Olivia, reviewing the process for her recorded testimony with ADA Patterson and Dr. Thomas. "Remember, you can take a break anytime you need to," Dr. Thomas reminded her. "And you don't have to answer any question that makes you uncomfortable." Maya nodded, her fingers tracing patterns on the cover of her notebook, still her constant companion, though its pages now contained more colorful drawings and fewer tally marks counting days of survival. "Will Uncle Gerald see this recording?" she asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the question. His lawyers will, Patterson answered honestly. But he won't be in the room when you're speaking, and you won't have to see him at all. This seemed to satisfy Maya. She straightened her shoulders, a gesture Olivia now recognized as her preparation for difficult tasks. I'm ready. The recording proceeded with careful attention to Maya's comfort. Patterson asked his questions in simple, direct language, allowing Maya to respond at her own pace. Dr. Thomas remained attentive to signs of distress, occasionally suggesting breaks when Maya's responses became clipped or her gaze dropped to her hands for extended periods. Maya described the beginning of her mother's relationship with Gerald, his initial kindness that gradually transformed as he established himself in their apartment. She recounted how, after her mother's accident, Gerald's business meetings began, requiring her to leave the apartment for hours at a time regardless of weather or time of day. He said I was too noisy, she explained, that his clients needed privacy and kids asked too many questions. He gave me $5 the first time and told me to go to the library, but it was already closed. After that, he just told me to find somewhere to go until he texted that it was safe to come back. Her matter-of-fact recounting of these neglectful acts was more damning than any emotional display could have been. The normalization of abandonment in a child so young, the adaptation to survival under impossible circumstances. When Patterson gently asked about Gerald's comments regarding photographs, Maya's composure briefly faltered. He said his friend Mr. Finch thought I had the right look for special pictures, she said, her voice dropping to near whisper. That lots of people would pay to see them, and we could use the money for Mom's hospital bills. He said I should be grateful for the opportunity to help Mom. Catherine's hand tightened around Maya's, while Olivia fought to maintain her professional demeanor despite the rage rekindling in her chest. Patterson kept his expression neutral, though a muscle twitched in his jaw as he continued. Did Gerald or Mr. Finch ever take photographs of you, Maya? No, she confirmed. Gerald said we'd start the next week, after I'd seen how it worked. That's when. She paused, looking up at Olivia. That's when Ms. Olivia found me under the table and called the police. The session continued for just over an hour, with Maya answering each question with the remarkable clarity and recall that had impressed her therapist throughout their sessions. When Patterson finally concluded his questioning, he thanked Maya with genuine respect. You've been incredibly brave today, he told her. This testimony will make a real difference in our case. Maya accepted his words with a small nod, her energy visibly depleted by the effort of recounting such difficult memories. As the recording equipment was shut down and the formal atmosphere of the interview dissolved, she leaned against Olivia's side, seeking comfort that was immediately provided. You did wonderfully, Olivia murmured, wrapping an arm around Maya's shoulders. I'm so proud of you. Is it really over? Maya asked, the question encompassing more than just the testimony. This part is over, Olivia confirmed. You won't have to talk about Gerald again unless you want to. Good. Maya reached for her notebook, opening it to a new page. Because I'd rather think about my science presentation. It's next week, and my solar system is almost finished. Her resilience never ceased to amaze. This ability to compartmentalize trauma and move forward, to find joy and purpose despite what she had endured. It wasn't that the wounds weren't there. Dr. Thomas had been clear that Maya would likely process and reprocess these experiences at different developmental stages throughout her life. But her capacity to continue growing, learning, and connecting despite those wounds was extraordinary. Speaking of the science presentation, Catherine said as they gathered their belongings, your mother asked if we could record it for her to watch at her treatment center. Would that be okay with you? Maya's face brightened. Really? She wants to see it. She specifically requested it, Catherine confirmed. She's been asking about your school projects in every phone call. This was another positive development of recent weeks. Diane's growing interest in the details of Maya's daily life, her efforts to be present as a mother even while physically separated during her recovery. The weekly phone calls had evolved from awkward, guilt-laden exchanges to more natural conversations, guided in part by the family therapy sessions that formed a crucial component of Diane's treatment program. I'd like that, Maya decided after a moment's consideration. Maybe we could visit afterward and show her how all the planets move in their orbits. The rehabilitation center has those big tables in the visiting room. I think that's a wonderful idea, Catherine agreed. We'll plan for Saturday afternoon, after your presentation. Olivia, would you like to join us? The invitation came naturally now, an acknowledgement of Olivia's ongoing role in Maya's expanded family circle. Since returning to Suffolk County CPS, Olivia had maintained her connection with Maya through regular weekend visits and occasional weeknight video calls. Her professional expertise had proven invaluable in navigating the complexities of the custody arrangements and reunification planning, while her personal bond with Maya provided continuity amid so much change. I wouldn't miss it, Olivia assured them. I've been waiting to see the final version of Neptune and all 13 moons. Maya smiled, some of the tension from the testimony session visibly leaving her small frame. I got all the moons right. And the rings. Did you know Neptune has rings, not just Saturn? They're just harder to see. As they left the district attorney's office and stepped into the May sunshine, Maya walked between Catherine and Olivia, one hand held by each, talking animatedly about her upcoming presentation. To casual observers, they might have appeared to be simply a family enjoying the spring day. No sign of the complicated circumstances that had brought them together. No visible evidence of the trauma they were collectively healing from. In many ways, Olivia reflected, they had become a family of sorts, not bound by traditional definitions or legal structures, but by choice and commitment and the shared goal of helping Maya not just survive but thrive. Catherine providing daily stability and nurturing. Diane working toward recovery and a healthier relationship with her daughter. And Olivia herself, bridging worlds as she had done since that first evening beneath the hospital table. The road ahead remained uncertain in many respects. Diane's long-term recovery would require ongoing support and vigilance. The criminal case against Gerald would continue through the justice system, with all its potential for both closure and re-traumatization. Maya's healing would unfold in its own time, with progress and occasional setbacks. But watching Maya point out a particularly vibrant flowering tree to Catherine, her face lifted toward its branches with genuine wonder, Olivia felt a certainty that had eluded her during her years of professional burnout. Some systems, however imperfect, could be navigated successfully. Some wounds, however deep, could heal with proper care. Some children, even those hidden in the shadows, could find their way to light when someone took the time to truly see them. Ms. Olivia, Maya tugged gently at her hand. You're being very quiet. Are you thinking about work things? Olivia smiled, returning her attention fully to the present moment. I was thinking about the first time I found you under that table at the hospital. How brave you were then, and how much braver you've been every day since. Maya considered this, her expression thoughtful. I don't feel brave most of the time. I just do what needs to be done. That's what bravery is, Catherine told her. Doing what needs to be done, even when it's difficult or scary. Like Mom going to treatment? Maya asked. And me talking about Uncle Gerald today? Exactly like that, Olivia confirmed. Maya nodded, processing this definition. Then I guess we're all being brave together. Together. The word encompassed everything they had built over these past months. The support network, the shared commitment, the collective healing that had allowed Maya to move from survival to something approaching normalcy. Not perfect, not without challenges, but fundamentally different from the isolation that had defined her life before Olivia noticed her hiding beneath that hospital table. Yes, Olivia agreed, squeezing Maya's hand gently. We're definitely all being brave together. As they continued toward the parking garage where Catherine's car waited, Maya began reciting the order of the planets in her solar system, her voice clear and confident in the spring air. Olivia listened, watching the child who had once counted survival days now enumerate celestial bodies with the same precise attention. Her focus shifted from mere existence to the exploration of a universe filled with possibilities. It was, Olivia thought, exactly as Maya had observed weeks earlier. Like spring, like things growing again. Not a fairy tale ending, Those didn't exist in the real world of trauma recovery and family healing, but a beginning of something new and hopeful, nurtured by the collective care of those who had chosen to see beyond the shadows, to find the child hiding beneath the table, and to bring her gradually, patiently into the light.